Hey, in this short lecture from Chapter 10, we're going to talk about communication in families. This will actually be a two-parter, so this is part one of communication in families. One of the things that we know about family communication is that it's formative. And what I mean by that is that the messages that we get from our family members are some of the most important that we receive. They're also some of the earliest messages that we get. So, for example, studies have shown messages from mothers shape the way daughters view romantic relationships. So, if you're a young girl and you grow up with your mother telling you, "Oh, men are dogs. They'll cheat on you. They're just awful. Don't trust a man." That's going to shape the way you view men as you grow up and as you move through life. We also know, perhaps on a better note, the studies show that the messages children hear about academics when growing up have a big influence on whether they drop out of high school or keep going and graduate. So if, as you're growing up, your parents tell you how important it is to do well in school, that they impress upon you that they value learning, then chances are you're probably going to do pretty well in school and you're going to stick with it. And usually I ask my students at this point, what kind of messages did you hear about education from your parents? And I'm always sort of amazed at some of the answers I get. Unfortunately, it seems like a lot of people's parents didn't put a big emphasis on education, and that always surprises and sort of depresses me a little bit. So, we know that family communication has lifelong effects. So the messages you get when you're little affect you moving forward, oftentimes for your entire life. So there are various theories that have sprung up around this idea, one of which is attachment theory, right? And attachment theory argues that children develop bonds with family members, right? And these bonds are either secure bonds or insecure bonds. So either the child feels like they have a secure, safe relationship with someone, or they feel like they have an insecure relationship, a tenuous relationship with someone, perhaps a parent, right? So insecure attachment in childhood often leads to adults who are worried, anxious about relationships. Adults who don't feel comfortable with intimacy are constantly worried about losing people, losing relationships. And of course, this can lead to self-fulfilling prophecies. If you think your relationship isn't going to work out, it probably isn't. Now, children who experience secure attachment are likely to communicate more confidently, have very few problems with intimacy, and maintain effective relationships with both their peers, teachers, and others, right? So what this means, of course, is that the kind of messages that you give your children, how you make them feel through your communication about their relationship with you is really, really important. Now, some things in childhood can't really be helped, right? And one of them is birth order. And it's interesting, the spot in which you're born, if you're firstborn, a middle child, thirdborn, fourthborn, right? This affects your personality as well, right? So we know that firstborn siblings are generally more outgoing than younger brothers and sisters. So if you're firstborn and you have younger brothers and sisters, chances are you're more social. Chances are that you're also more interested in being in control of situations. Now, middleborn kids tend to be closer with friends, but they're likely to have more difficult relationships with their family, so with their parents, with their brothers and sisters. And lastborn, also sometimes called caboose children after the last car on a train, are often more committed and closer to their family members than other siblings. So I don't know, this is always interesting. I like to have a talk about this when I have the class in front of me as well to see, does this match your experience? Now, family communication is role-driven. And what do I mean by that? Well, a role is a set of expectations about how to communicate. And the various roles in family are those of dad, mom, son, daughter, brother, sister, right? And there can be problems when these roles are changed. So, the daughter, for example, as she gets older, and her parents get older, might have to take on more of a parental role with their parents. The same can be said of the son, right? As our parents age, they might become unhealthy physically or cognitively. Alzheimer's, various physical diseases, these things happen. And sometimes the children have to step up and take responsibility for their parents, right? And that can create problems because the parents have always been used to performing a certain role in which they take responsibility for everyone else in the family, right? And so as we get older, as our relationships within the family change, this can cause problems. Now, we also know that as children grow up, they're labeled by other family members. So you might have experienced this yourself. So there might be the good one, right? Or the smart kid, or the pretty one, or the screw up in the family, right? And these kinds of labels can stick. And these also can lead to self-fulfilling prophecy, sometimes good, sometimes bad, right? So if you grow up and the whole time you're growing up, your parents are like, oh, she's the smart one, she's the pretty one. Well, that could be really good for you because it might mean that in the long run you sort of absorb those comments and make it a reality. But if you grow up the whole time and your parents or your brother and sister are like, oh, you're the dumb one, well, you could also take that to be truth and act accordingly. Now, of course, as I already indicated, family roles change as people age. These roles aren't static. They don't stay the same. And sibling relationships change with time as well, right? So, for example, my sister and I, our relationship is much different now that I'm 47 and she's 40 than it was when I was 17 and she was 10, right? So these things do change over time. All right, well, that's it for this part 1 of this lecture, and thanks for checking it out. We'll do part 2 next time.